Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Led to Gold, the podcast discussing all things growth and wellness. This is my ultimate passion project. I am psyched to be coming back here every other week with some just good conversations that I believe we should all be at least considering or musing about if we're not already naturally doing so. Today's conversation is definitely going to be one of those. And in general, I am just hoping to spread a message of the possibility of growth. You know, I spent a long time feeling like things were never going to get better, or at least not hopeful that they would potentially get better. And I am not forever and ever on the other side of that. I know we all have our bad days. We all have our days where we don't feel super keen on life, but for the most part, I've been able to, in my own life, through very, very deep reflection and a lot of intentional time spent journaling and just alone with myself and reintegrating into my own body and evaluating my relationships and the things that really are important and valuable to me. With the help, I should absolutely add, with the help of so many amazing people in my life, people out there in the internet ethers, so many supports out there. And I'm happy to say that for the most part, I'm hopeful about life. And my ultimate goal in bringing this show to the world is spreading that message that there is hope, even when things feel insane, even when it feels like things may never get better. I hope to spread the message that it can, and it does. And I'm just really happy to be here with you. Today's conversation is going to be a pretty intense one for me. I'm expecting this is something that is hyper relevant in my life and something that has had me feeling way more emotional in the past week or so than I have been in a while. Something that has made me cry several times just in the past week, and I am not a big crier. So it's a deep one for me, and I want to start right off just by saying that this is absolutely something I'm still moving through. I do not have all the answers. I have some ideas and some things I would like to manifest in my own life and discuss with you all in the Led to Gold community. But in general, this is very, very, very much in the now for me. So still a lot to figure out, still a lot to sift through and feel. But I feel in the past day or so, like I've kind of come out of the worst of like the emotional intensity. And I'm ready to reflect and talk about it. And I really just felt like this was the perfect place to channel that conversation, because I know that I am not the only one experiencing it. So without further ado, today's conversation, we're going to be chatting about adult friendships. Can we have the conversation? Can we have the full conversation? Because everywhere you turn online, in the world, talking to your friends, if you are of a similar age to me in your mid or upper 20s, maybe early 30s, this is such a hot topic. This is such a conversation just waiting to be tapped and waiting to be learned about and just discussed more, because everywhere you turn, what I was about to say, everywhere you turn, I see people say one of two things. First one, why doesn't anybody talk about adult friendships? Why doesn't anybody talk about how hard it is to have a friendship breakup in your adulthood? Second thing, why is it so hard to make friends in adulthood? So these are the conversations and questions that I hope to maybe not exactly answer today, but just sift through and see what we can do and where we can go from here. So that's our day. That's our chat today. And to give a little bit of context, I want to just kind of give a little story time about where this is stemming from right now. So it's been upsetting for me. It's been a really hard and heavy realization in my body and just in my emotional subconscious, I suppose, of just acknowledging that my friend group is not what it used to be. And this is, I think, the case for everyone at any given time with a friend group. Like, things are constantly changing. There's always new relationships to be had. And then when people in the friend group date and then they break up, and then there's a new partner and new friends that they want to bring into the circle, and then people that move away. And it's just like there's such constant change in all of our human relationships. So it's very natural for friendships and friend groups to change along with those things. The thing that has been on my mind recently and has been hard for me to work through, though, is just recognizing that the friend group that I have had for years now has been so good for me. Just, I would do anything for them. I would die for any single one of them. I adore them. I have adored the years that we have spent just like having theme parties and sitting around and drinking and going out to the city and going to concerts and just like, oh my gosh, having concert buddies. It's the best thing in the world. And I just adore them. I want to do everything with them all the time. I want to see them every weekend, do everything I can. And most importantly, this is kind of my thing. I'm sure not everybody feels this way, but I am so attached to my friends. Like, they are everything to me, everything. And I don't think I could ever fully explain in words how deeply and truly I mean that, but they're my lifeline. They're so important to me. So I've been recognizing that friendships change. I've been for years now sitting with the fact that everything in life changes. But what I haven't experienced until this week really is like the actual living out of that, seeing and feeling things change. So I had a friend who was trying to make plans to go hiking about a week ago, and it just didn't work out. And we don't need all the details here, but it just didn't work out. And like, we were trying to make things work. It didn't. There were other people involved that I wasn't as close with. And I was just like, God, I got so frustrated. I immediately was like, frustration, but it was weird. It was an overreaction, absolutely an overreaction for me to be like, God, why can't anything just work out? And I kind of recognized that within myself. I was talking to my partner about it, more like ranting and yelling to my partner about it. Just like, God, I want things to work out. Like, this is so annoying. I hate that this is happening. Like, literally shaking. I was furious, right? And in the middle of this conversation, I recognize that I'm yelling. I recognize that I'm ranting, and that I'm probably blowing things out of proportion, and that it's not as big a deal as I'm making it out to be. Like, things just didn't work out. I recognized that, but I kind of couldn't stop myself. And then my partner was in the room with me, and he just said, this happens. Friends get distant. Friends are allowed to have other friends that they prioritize, or that sometimes things don't always work out in our favor. Things change. He kind of like brought me down a little bit. And as soon as he started talking, this was honestly such a crazy spiritual experience for me. As soon as he said that, as soon as he tried to like bring me back down from whatever crazy raging rant I was going on, all he had to say was, things change. And I immediately started crying. It was like a flip of a switch. I went from just like this intense frustration and anger to just crying. And that was wild for me. It was the first time I can really, truly say that I was present with an emotional change like that. And then I just went immediately into kind of like my inner child. I just was like, why is this so hard? Why is it so hard to lose friends or for things to change? I just want things to be how they always have been. I just want to keep this friend group. I want to be friends with these people forever. And I know that's not realistic, but in that moment, it just hurt so, so bad. And that's not the first time that I've had a reaction like this. And this is another thing I've been sitting with this week is that, okay, this is actually really nothing new for me. I've had different experiences with losing friends. Some of them are really not emotional. Some of them are incredibly emotional. The first thing that I thought of when I had this reaction was when I was in second grade. So literally like in childhood, I remember I was having a really crappy day, and to get into it, I was having a horrible day because my hamster got out of her cage somewhere in the house and we lost her and we couldn't find her, and we were spending all day looking for her and we weren't having any luck. So to hopefully lift my spirits a little bit, this was on a weekend, I called my best friend's house on the telephone and just like wanted to talk to her. And I was just like, hey girl, we lost our hamster. We're looking for her. Da 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 da. I don't know what we talked about, but I just was calling her to try to feel better. I was literally 8 years old. And somewhere in the conversation, she goes, oh, I have some news for you actually. And I was just like, oh yeah, what is it? And she was like, I'm moving to Kansas. And I lived in Virginia. She's like, I'm moving to Kansas. Like at the end of the summer, I don't know, sometime in the near future. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. Wow. And then we got off the phone and I viscerally remember flopping over on my bed and just sobbing. My best friend, the best friend I had ever had up until that point of being 8 years old, was moving halfway across the country. Sobbed. So upset. So upset. And that obviously, compounded the sadness that I was feeling because we lost our hamster. The good news is we did find the hamster, but the bad news is clearly we were 8 years old. I did not stay friends with that girl. So, the duality of life. Anyway, moments that happen in the present that feel like that immediately bring me back to that moment, or they bring me back to this other moment in college where I really, really wanted to live with my freshman roommate again the next year, but the place that I was moving to was a little bit more expensive. She was paying for her loans like all on her own, and just, long story short was like, I really can't justify the extra cost, so I can't live with you. And same exact thing. As soon as she left the room, I laid in my bed and I cried for like an hour. And I don't know what it is. I don't think I'm the only one, but sometimes it does feel a little bit isolating just how emotional, like, distancing from friends can make me. And it's just a weird phenomenon that I want to talk more about and hopefully eventually kind of sift through. It's not that I don't want to feel that way. I don't. But I can absolutely acknowledge that there is something kind of beautiful about just how deeply it hurts to lose people, whether it's distance or whether it is like the true ending of a relationship. I admire that quality in myself because it makes me feel good to know that like I really do treasure my friendships like nothing else in my life. But what I would like to figure out is why I feel the need to hold on forever when I know that that's not what life is like. And if there's any way to potentially learn that and accept it, I think acceptance is the word that I'm trying to look for there. to truly accept that things do change. Friendships are not always forever, and they're definitely not consistent, if that makes sense. I can get more into that a little bit later. So back to the phrase that I see all over the place nowadays is that no one talks about this sort of thing. No one talks about friendship breakups. And I recognize that friendship breakups are slightly different than like friends moving away or friends just like getting distant, which there's all a nuance to all of these things. We'll talk about all of it. But the conversation I want to start with here is that people are acknowledging these things. I always see no one talks about friendship breakups. Yeah, they do. I mean, but I feel like the conversation goes as far as saying no one talks about friendship breakups. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how badly that fucking hurts. I've experienced my fair share of genuine friendship breakups too, and things that don't really have closure and things that are just left kind of dangling. In fact, I feel like I'm still in some relationships like that. It's weird. It's extremely weird. And I want to just name that the reason these things feel so weird is because we have language for what to do when romantic relationships get this way. We kind of have a guidebook for it at this point. I feel like we don't really have that guidebook for friends, for platonic relationships. So what can we do? You know, we're starting to have these conversations. People are discussing it, but we really, as a collective, seem to struggle with the recovery of a severed friendship, a dead friendship, something that's awkward and weird and we're not quite sure where we stand with that person. All of these things are very hard to recover from. So I want to give a few potential like theories as to why this may be the case. And again, I am no expert. I am moving through these things just as much as anybody else. And again, like in your mid-20s, I feel like this is kind of a focal theme of life. This is what we go through at this stage. A few things that caught my attention as I was kind of musing over this podcast episode. The first thing that came to mind for me about why this might be a hard concept for a lot of people, or why it feels so difficult when things end with a friend, is that we have it so coded in our language and in our society, the concept of the BFF, the best friend forever. We say it all the time. And maybe it's just me getting a little bit English teacher nerdy here, but using that language like BFF, or even more frequent recently is bestie, they have the same connotation. But we just throw bestie around at everything. I wonder about what that does to us subconsciously. I wonder if growing up with the idea and the expectation of a BFF has kind of damaged our perception of reality, which is that BFFs aren't always a thing. I will not say that BFFs don't exist. I know they do, but it's very rare. And I'd be willing to bet that if it is a true, deep, genuine friendship like the kind that I want in my own life, it's hard to maintain. It's hard to maintain. Another thing that this makes me think of, I feel very intertwined about these two theories, is that certain people's upbringing and the things that they grew up seeing as far as expectations for friends may have an effect. I do think that this is part of why I struggle and have struggled pretty much my whole life on the idea of losing friends, because my mom kept the same best friend from middle school all the way up until the past couple of years. So I went my entire childhood seeing her call her high school best friend, middle school best friend on the phone, I don't know, at least once a month, but other times it was more like once a week. So they were very in touch. We were very close with her friend's family. We spent so much time with them. And she wasn't the only one. They had a whole group of people that they stayed close with after high school. It definitely helps that we lived in the area that they graduated from. And I don't think it was quite an expectation, at least around where we grew up, for everybody to leave right after high school. That's definitely changed. And that's another thing that I could discuss here. But in short, yeah, I grew up seeing my parents keep their best friends from high school, from middle school. And I definitely think that had an effect on my expectation of forever friends. The funny thing is, I was a little bit disillusioned from that right around the same time that I was dealing with a really awkward, really uncomfortable, dangling friendship. And it was, my mom kind of realized that her best friend was not very good to her. So this person that she kept around for 45-ish years, she realized 45 years into their friendship that maybe it wasn't really the best thing for her or for either of them. So right around, literally, we talked about this. I remember having lots of conversations with my mom about this. Right around the same time that I was struggling with some friendship things, she was struggling big time with her longtime best friend. And that, even though I may not have realized it at the time, was the beginning of my disillusionment to the idea of the BFF. Finally, another potential reason why I think, especially today in our generation and the things that we are absorbed in, another reason that it can be really hard to recover from losing friends, distancing from friends, things like that, is sort of this like mix of seeing them on social media and either having intense FOMO or even jealousy to a degree of like, seeing their stories, seeing who they're hanging out with, and just not feeling great about it. It is and has been something in my life where I've had to mute people because it was too painful to see who else they were hanging out with or what they were doing that, just a month or two ago, they would have told me every little detail about, and now I don't even know it. Like, I'll see that they're in some nondescript location and I'm like, damn, like if we were still close, I would know exactly what you were doing and why you were there. And it just hurts to not know those things anymore, to not be told those things anymore. It's kind of funny, just on the note of nuances and the ways that people deal with these things differently, but I've never considered myself the type of person to really experience FOMO. It's something that I see a lot and something that a lot of people in my life do talk about that they experience. And it's definitely a valid reaction to knowing that your friends are hanging out without you, or people that you want to hang out with are hanging out without you. And a lot of insecurity comes up with FOMO. The interesting thing is, the thing I feel I relate more to, and I have absolutely labeled this as a somewhat toxic trait of mine that I'm trying to work on, is the jealousy aspect. Like, I do get pretty jealous when I see my friends hanging out with other people. And I try so hard to mitigate that and not let it bother me. But I have to be honest and say that sometimes it does bother me, especially if it's somebody that I, feel really close to and I love spending a lot of time with them. It's like, I just want to spend all my time with you. And I hope that doesn't make me sound crazy. Maybe it does a little bit, but it really is something I'm trying to work on because I recognize that it's not fair. I'm allowed to have other friends besides my closest group of friends, and I should allow my friends to do the same. I would never say anything about it, but sometimes I do get a little jealous on the inside. So sorry, friends. So in any case, those are a couple of theories that I have been just musing about and thinking these might be some societal norms that we're now used to that make it harder to let friends go, to let them move away, to let old friendships die if they need to die. And it's just hard. I almost feel like we've dug ourselves into a little bit of a rut, and it's hard to get out of it. It's hard to let go of the expectation of the BFF. It's hard to be a person on social media and watch your friends do other things with other people and look like they're having such a great time, and then get in your own head about, well, am I not fun? Like, why didn't they invite me? Do they not like me anymore? Why didn't I know about this thing? Like, were they trying to keep it from me? It's a whole thing. And we can get so deep into the psychological damage that can potentially do, and the insecurities, like I said, that brings up. But all in all, just some things to be aware of. And really, I'm trying to practice taking a step back from my initial gut reaction to those things. So, in other words, I see a group of my friends go hiking. I wasn't invited. When that happens, I want to be upset initially. And my gut reaction is like, why didn't they invite me? But then you take a step back and you go, okay, maybe I was busy that day. Maybe it was just a matter of convenience. And you know what? That's okay. That's really, really okay. It's just a matter of recognizing that some of the tools that we now have access to are in some ways hurting us more than they're helping us. Yes, we can stay in touch with people that we haven't seen in a long time. It's actually, since we're on this conversation, social media is at its core a great way to keep up with friendships. But on the other hand, it can have some reverse effects. It can insinuate jealousy. It can insinuate feeling left out, feeling insecure. It can make people question your intentions with the friendship. So there's all kinds of things that could happen there. It is, I think, worth noting and worth thinking about how that can affect our relationships. All right, so friendships are hard. Friendship breakups are even harder. We're beginning to understand why that is the case and what we are kind of up against in making it a little bit easier on ourselves. But what can we do about it? What can we truly do about the horrible, painful situations when a friendship does need to end or a conversation needs to be had? Well, that's one answer for you. We can be brave and have that conversation, the sort of where are we conversation. And it's a little bit awkward, I will absolutely admit, because a lot of the advice or the ideas that I want to give in this episode very closely mirror romantic relationships. And that's something that is also kind of a societal expectation, that we don't treat our friends like we treat our partners. Well, in a lot of relational situations, we kind of do have to do that. And it feels weird. I'm telling you right now, the worst friendship breakup that I've gone through in recent years, I kept feeling like so almost uncomfortable with my own thoughts, because I'm like, am I in love with her? Like, is that what's going on here? And again, you take a step back, and I had to, just be honest with myself. Like, no, I do not have like romantic feelings toward this friend, but I do love her. I do love her. And that's exactly why this is so hard. Now, some of the things we can do to mitigate or to fully sever the ties or to have the conversation or to move on. Literally, like, even just the concept of moving on, it sounds so romantic, but it's not. It's a relational thing. So the first thing, like I just said, you kind of need to have that where are we conversation if you feel it's necessary. I know there are all kinds of situations in which friendships get distant without anyone really acknowledging it or saying it. And it feels really weird and painful and like, just what did I do? You know, did I do something? Did you do something? What's going on here? So if you're able, sometimes it's really nice to actually sit down and be brave and say, well, what happened here? Like, what's going on with us? Where are we? Do we want this to continue? Have things changed? You know, there's all kinds of conversations that you can have, but it takes radical honesty and radical vulnerability. And that's really, really hard. And I can sit here and say this all day long to you all, but I would be lying if I said that I've ever been truly successful in doing that. So that shows you just how hard it is. Other things, though, you know, again, a lot of this is going to sound like somewhat of dating advice, but if you have to, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, if it is too painful to watch an old friend live their life without you, I don't see anything wrong with blocking them or at least muting them so you don't have to see everything they're doing, because that hurts. And it's the same thing if you were going to break up with a partner and you don't want to still be a part of their life, but like watching from the window sort of deal. We mute them or we block them. You know, it's weird. It feels super weird and it feels super hurtful because, as a side note, I think there's also a lot of times an expectation that like, okay, maybe my friend and I are just going through a rough patch. Maybe everything will be fine again in the future. So we hesitate to cut them off like that. It's not that way for a lot of relationships. A lot of times when relationships are done, we're like, okay, this is done. This is over. You're not coming back into my life. So it's easier to kind of like sever the blight in social media. But yeah, just some ideas there. Now let's kind of flip the script here for a second. I want to talk about what we can do as a process of moving on from friendships, or even if it's not like a friendship breakup. Like, let's just say your good friends are moving away, or maybe you've moved away and now you're kind of alone and you don't know anyone where you are moving to. How can we still take care of our social needs? You know, I don't see, like I said, I don't see anything wrong with seeking new friends. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I was frustrated because my friend group's group chat is not always the best at responding. And again, like I kind of had that weird moment of irrational frustration. And I was like, God, like, do they not like me anymore? Should I just stop trying? And in a moment of frustration, I joined Bumble BFF. And I felt weird about it. But in a way, it kind of helped. I'm still a little bit iffy on my thoughts about like trying to find new friends through what is essentially a dating app. But it is a strategy, you know, and I'm saying this especially for people that have moved or are like really looking for a new group to get back out there with. I don't think it's a bad starting point, because you can really start to see, all right, well, what do I value in a friend? What do I like to talk about? And how can I kind of show who I am to other people? Like, how can I really practice? I think it's a great form of practice. How can I practice introducing myself? How can I practice putting myself out there? I think Bumble's a great way to do that. Another thing, though, and I think these are potentially more beneficial, would be to be brave and actually go out, actually talk to people. This is something that I am really bad at. When I go out with my friends, I want to be there with the friends that I came with. I'm not very brave yet. It's not always super fun for me to talk to new people unless, like I feel like everybody else says, unless I've had several drinks and I'm loosened up. Like, that's the only time it becomes easy and feels more natural for me to open up to new people. So a big part of this is getting brave and just going out there and doing it. Going to events. The complete opposite of what I just said. I think there's it seems such an awesome and such a large movement of people who are sober curious nowadays. I think that is amazing because there are events that sober curious people can go to if you live near a city where there is no expectation to drink. There is no expectation that like you have to loosen up and in order to be an interesting person to talk to. It's like, no, we're all here, we're all sober, we're all awkward, and we're all human. And we're just going to sit here and do our best and meet each other. And then I just think that's an incredible thing. There's so much more I could say about that, but for the sake of time, going to events in general, going to events that actually really strike your fancy. So things like, for me, it would be plant sales, or there's this really cool bar downtown where I live that does vinyl nights. And I actually have not gone to that yet, but I really, really want to go. You essentially bring your favorite vinyl or two and kind of trade and like talk to the people that are there about them. And then you can play them there and just like see what kinds of music other people are into. And the vibe that I get from that bar seems like it would be right up my alley in terms of music taste. So that seems like something I could definitely make a friend or two at if I tried to. But that's the thing. You have to try. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge that none of these suggestions are easy. They all require us to really put ourselves out there. The other thing I would say, though, kind of on the flip side, because these are hard. Like it is hard to make friends. It is very, very hard to make friends as an adult. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that as adults, we become so busy that we go to work, we come home, we eat dinner, we hang out with our partner if we have one, or our pet if we have one. And we're not really getting a lot of opportunities these days to actually like interact with people. And I'm all for internet friends. I have lots of internet friends. I have lots of people who I have made connections with that I've never met in person, and I still absolutely consider them my friends. But there is something to be said for being able to interact physically with people. And no matter how immersed we get in technology and in social media, that need is ever going to go away. I don't think that need is ever going to be sufficiently taken care of by internet friends, because you can't be with each other. There's just something about the actual being with each other that means so much. So anyway, a strategy that we could use in person, this is kind of something that has to be done in person, that I think takes the pressure off of having to go to events that are interesting to you and having to find people who are like you and ask them questions and like almost quiz them, because that's not authentic and that feels weird. That feels more like dating than trying to make new friends. And maybe this is not a universal experience, but every best friend that I've ever had, every close friend that I've ever had became my close friend naturally. I didn't have to quiz them. I didn't have to spend several occasions hanging out with them before I decided like, oh, I like you and I want to hang out with you more. You're gonna be my friend. It was kind of instantaneous. I don't want to say like I immediately met this person and I immediately knew we were going to be friends, although that does happen. But generally, being able to meet people, I think so much of it comes down to an intuitive knowing that this is the kind of person that I could see myself getting close to and being friends with. So I say that, and I include the whole quip about internet friends just to say, yes, we can absolutely meet people online, talk to people on Bumble, and like have similar interests. We can go to events that from the description, interest us and like cater to the things that we enjoy, and hopefully would lend itself to people that we enjoy being there. But a lot of this comes down to trusting your intuitive feeling about a person and being like, just noticing, I like your vibe. You seem cool. And then just a little twinge of bravery that comes with that. And this is the nice thing about that moment, because I think it tends to work both ways. If you have that intuitive knowing of, hey, I like this person, it's pretty likely that they feel the same way about you, which is great, which is such an awesome thing. And sometimes we don't even have to do that little awkward stepping out of our comfort zone and going, hey, I like your vibe. We should hang out again sometime. Because again, it kind of steeps into the weird like dating lingo that we're not used to. And we don't always have to do that. Sometimes it just happens naturally. Sometimes it's just like, okay, we're doing this. Like, we're friends. Cool. See ya next week. And we love when that happens. We love when that happens. If it's not quite to that point and you want it to happen with somebody that you meet, I think there is nothing weird about just saying that. Like, hey, you're cool. What are you doing like this weekend? Do you want to go out? Or like, hey, I think you would really like my friends. You should hang out with us sometime. That's actually how a lot of new friends of mine have gotten like integrated into my current friend group. Just being like, hey, you seem cool. I think you'd like my friends. I want you to meet this person. I want you to do this thing with us. And then they do. And it can often end up being the start of something really great. But here is the ultimate piece of potential advice that I could give, because I think it is so important. And I think that when we start to get in this headspace of, oh God, I'm an adult now, making friends as an adult is so hard, and I'm losing all my friends and all my friends are moving away, and like, oh God, when we start getting in that headspace and we start like having this conversation of, okay, well, how do I go out and make new friends? What do I do? We forget that we already have friends. And even if you don't feel that way, even if you're like, well, maybe I have one person that I talk to, or maybe I have like a few people at work that I interact with, but I don't have any true friends. I don't go out with anybody, whatever. It doesn't matter. You have connections. There are people in your life in some regard. There has to be. So the biggest thing that I could say on this is, whatever those friendships that you currently have are, whatever those connections that you currently have are, treasure the fuck out of them. Treasure them. Be good to them. Put energy and effort into them. Because if you're anything like me, even though I don't like to admit that I have some social anxiety and that I get nervous about meeting new people from time to time, this is by far, this is easier to do to me than going out and starting completely fresh and trying to make new friends. It is infinitely easier to put effort and time and energy into the friendships and connections that you already have, and treasure them. Like, be grateful for them. Because if you don't put any time and energy into them, then eventually it's likely that they will slip away. If you don't keep up with a person, it's likely that they will potentially move away without telling you, or you're going to find out on social media, or you're not going to get invited to the wedding, whatever it is. And I'm speaking from my mid-20s perspective, because these are the things people are doing right now, moving away, getting married, maybe having babies, all of these things that make it harder to sustain friendships. You're not even going to know about it unless you put time and energy into the friendship. So spend time there, strengthen them. If there's a friend that you are still finding yourself really caring about, but you haven't seen them in a long time, ask them to hang out. It's that simple. Go catch up over coffee. Go have brunch. do whatever you used to do with them. Invite them back out. If you moved and they haven't seen your new house and you can reasonably see each other because you live a close enough distance, invite them over. Like, there's so many things we can do. But I think, at least in my experience, I tend to forget about some of the people who are not in my immediate friend group. And people will text me or DM me, and I'm really bad about responding sometimes. Even though if I would take the time more often to just go through, respond, genuinely put some presence into the conversation and ask how they're doing, ask what they've been up to, or if they would like to hang out sometime soon and like really catch up. It doesn't take that much time, but it could make a world of difference, and it could make the process of navigating new relationships and old relationships and dying relationships in whatever stage of life you're in, it can make that process so much easier and so much less painful if we can just, hold on to what we've got. Not with all we've got, but put energy into it. Last but not least, and I've alluded to this many times throughout this conversation, but the final thing I could say on what to do about all of this change and what to do in the process of figuring out your adult friendships is to allow yourself to mourn if you need to. And that is exactly where I'm at right now. Again, alluded to it at the beginning of this episode, but I have sat with the fact that things change and that nothing's ever going to last forever. Like, I know that, but I haven't really lived it. I haven't really felt it. I haven't let myself feel it until this week. And it has been profound and deep and scary and sad and kind of horrible. But you know what? The fact that I have now, at least to a degree, sat with it makes me feel a lot better about moving forward, because I feel like I've kind of gotten over the hurdle of something, and now I can actually start looking forward to the future, whatever it may hold. And all of these things that I just sat here and shared with you, all of these little tidbits and advice pieces, they're going straight back to myself too, because I was not ready to implement any of this or really truly think about any of this until I cried about it and sat with it and talked about it multiple times this week. Only until I did that was I able to actually sit and write about this stuff. And it feels like a true lesson, like a true divine lesson that is being asked of me to figure out, because it's something I've struggled with for a long time now, and it's something that I needed to face. So if you are in a spot where this is just sucking, like this just sucks, know first that you're not alone. You are so not alone in that. And know that it is so beautiful that you love your friends and value your relationships enough that it deeply saddens you to lose them or to feel the distance. It's beautiful. Like, it speaks to your character so much that you feel that way. Let yourself move through it, because it sucks right now. But like I just said, only after you really allow yourself to feel it and let it move through your body and recognize where this could potentially be stemming from for you, only after that happens will you be able to move forward, and will it suck less. I think it's always going to suck to a degree. Just the reality that this is what life is. Things change. People leave. It's life. And you hear it all the time, but it doesn't really sink in until it happens to you, or I believe until it's meant to, because God, it's happened to me over and over and over and over and over, because that's the nature of life. But For some reason, right now, September 2023, wow, I almost just said 2020. What the fuck was that? September 2023, end of Virgo season, in the midst of a bajillion retrogrades, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what the stars are doing up there. But for some reason, right now is the time that the universe was like, okay, girl, this is your thing to deal with. Let's get through it. You've been on it long enough. Let's turn the page. Let's go on to something else. So that's just how we're getting by, I suppose. I want to take this all the way back to the beginning when I was talking about the most recent sort of struggle with this. I had some friends that went on a hike and it didn't work out and I didn't get to go with them. Well, that friend came over this past weekend and I was really excited because we haven't seen each other in a while and I could just feel my energy was out of whack. Like my emotional state was heightened. I wasn't really frustrated anymore with anything. I just was like, I feel like I just need to explode with emotion. And I was really looking forward to just like sitting on my couch, having a long ass conversation. And that's exactly what we did. We stayed up until 3 a.m. or even later, just talking and like drinking a little bit. And it was everything I needed and more. And I told him exactly what had happened earlier in the week with like the miscommunication about the hike and how I was so frustrated. And then Mikey said the thing that he said, my partner. And then I just started crying and he was like, well, tell me more. And so I just kind of rehashed exactly what I said days before. I was like, I just love our friend group so much. And I have loved everything we've gotten to do together and everything that has ever happened between us. And I am so scared of it ending because I can feel it, maybe not ending, but changing. I can feel it getting a little bit more distant. And I am just so scared that I'm never going to have a friend group like this again. And in the middle of saying that, I cried again. And we just kind of like talked through it and cried through it. And it felt amazing to get that out to somebody else. Right. And he said to me that he was really confident that I will, just because I don't know. I guess I'm an easy person to talk to. And it just felt really good to have it affirmed that, totally normal to feel that way. Totally normal to be scared that you'll never have a close friend group again. But just knowing that he was like confident that I will, because it's just kind of naturally a part of me, that just made things much better. And still sad, but a good sad, So that's where we're at with that conversation. I clearly do not have all the answers, but if you have suggestions or additions to this, as per usual, please let me know. Drop me a DM in Instagram. My link is in the show notes for you. We can continue this over there. This is so, like I said, hyper relevant to me right now and just so like deep in my heart. I want to see how we're all feeling about this. I really feel like it's a pretty across the board situation, at least parts of this, but I want to know. So if you have comments or questions or additions, let's talk about it. I would love to hear from you. And just before we go, we got to do our usual little card from We're Not Really Strangers. So let's get that out. Let's see if it's going to be relevant to anything we just talked about. Sometimes they are. Okay. I got a wild card today. It says, admit something to yourself. to yourself is in parentheses. By the way, if you're new to the show, we do this at the end of every episode. And if you want to journal your response to this question, feel free to do that. Grab a pen real quick, even just jot it down. I feel like this one is kind of a one sentencer, and I'd love to hear your response to this too. So let's do this together. Again, one more time, the wild card for today is admit something to yourself. Okay, just to keep this answer kind of on brand, on topic rather, for this conversation, I'm going to admit something that I admitted in the same conversation with my friend the other day, but it's something that is just like so silly and has not changed since I was a child. So I was talking to him about how, after I cried, after we got out all the big emotions, I said, I always wanted to live on the same street as all my friends. And like, I truly, when I was like 13, believed that that was a reality and that everybody that I was friends with was just going to like go in on it with me. Like, it was going to happen. It was just going to happen. I was so optimistic, and I'm still pretty painfully optimistic because, as we have talked about, I still, and I don't know, okay, I was just getting ready to say, I still believe in having a BFF. I do. And I don't think that's insane. I did say that at the beginning of the episode. I think BFFs absolutely exist. But I don't think that it is silly to expect that, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. I think the ultimate thing that I want to admit to myself and to you all is that I am unapologetic in wanting to be friends with people forever. And I am unapologetic in how feverishly I love my friends. And I don't care if that sounds creepy, because to me, it's just how I am. So, yeah, there we go. How about you? What are you going to admit to yourself? You don't have to tell me, but if you want to, you can. All right, friends. I think we've had a good rant for today, and thank you so much for sticking it out with me. I hope you enjoyed, and again, I'd love to hear from you. So if you got anything to say, follow the link down below in the show notes to my Instagram. If you're interested, you can also check out my webpage, my blog, Led to Gold. It's all under the same name, and I offer some bi-weekly blog posts over there. You can subscribe there. You can rate the show. And if you feel so inclined, maybe you've been having this same kind of conversation with people in your life, share this with a friend or two, see what they think. Have some conversations. I love you so much, so much. Whoever you are, just know that I got a lot of love to give. And I will see you back here in another 2 weeks with yet another episode. So until then, be well, enjoy wherever you are in life, and can't wait to hear from you again. All right. Bye.